Common Touch of Fantasy, and this is starting a new book. I did this last time with The Red Knight, and I found this to be a lot of fun. And what I do is I look at the book for the first time, I read about the book for the first time, and I give my first impressions. So while I'm reading, I might like have a little interjection, or I might have a little something that I might say, and I'm basically discovering the book for the first time on stream. I stream these because number one, I can manipulate the screen easier, and also the quality is better than if I would record it on my computer. I like to do this on my computer just because I can add graphics and stuff on the screen while I'm doing it. So that makes it easy. So I am about to start the YA mega hit Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Let's first start off by saying that Bardugo is an awesome last name. She gets 1 point for having a cool name. I like the cover. It's got this sweet crow that comes down into the sky with its wings. I like the cover quite a bit. This is a library book I got at my local library with the interlibrary loans. And first impression of the look of the book is really cool. It's got the black tipped edges, which is very cool. Look how sweet that looks. Yeah, I like tipped edges. It's really cool. It makes a good effect. I can't show you the actual hardcover because, library book. But anyways, a lot of people read this last year and really liked it. And I wanted to give it a try because I'm trying to be a little bit more broadening with the things I read. So YA is something that, I'm going to try. So when big books come out that people seem to like a lot on BookTube, I'm going to give them a try and see how I feel as a grown man. Okay, so the front is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, New York Times best-selling author of the Grisha trilogy, which I have not read, so I don't know how much that is going to impact my enjoyment of this book. A friend of mine said that he felt that his enjoyment of Six of Crows had a lot to do with the fact that he did read the Grisha trilogy, so maybe I am not not in the good on that, so whatever. So the front says 6 dangerous outcasts, 1 impossible heist. Okay, so it's a heisty book, YA heist, and it's gonna be like six individuals doing a heist, kind of maybe a little bit Mistbornish, a little bit of Loch Namora, maybe. All right. In the back we have the synopsis on the back. The Ice Court had been built to withstand an onslaught of armies, assassins, Grisha, and spies. When Enage said as much to Kaz, he simply replied, "But it hasn't been built to keep us out." Oh, he thinks he's cool. His confidence unnerved her. "What makes you think we can do this? There will be other teams out there, trained soldiers and spies, people with years of experience. This isn't a job for trained soldiers and spies. It's a job for thugs and thieves." Ooh, I do like thievy, heisty books, so I have a good feeling about this. And then the front flap says, Ketterdam, a bustling hub of international trade where anything can be had for the right price, and no one knows that better than criminal prodigy Kaz Brakar. Kaz is offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't pull it off alone. Then it goes into the 6 people that was mentioned on the front. A convict with a thirst for revenge. A sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager. So sharpshooters, I mean there's guns in this book? A runaway with a privileged past. That sounds cool. A spy known as the Wraith. Huh. A heart render using her magic to survive the slums. I have to find out what Heartrender is. A thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. Kaz's crew are the only ones who might stand between the world and destruction if they don't kill each other first. Alright. The tagline's really overused, but whatever. Check out the end papers. Nice and red. That's pretty cool. The black and red effect. I like that. And then, oh, we have a map. The map is pretty simplistic, which I like. Maybe. And then a map of the ice court. I'm thinking that's like the citadel or whatever that they go to. So yeah, it's probably the place they have to break into, more than likely. Leigh Bardugo by Henry Holt and Company, New York. Published in 2015 by Henry Holt and Company, Leigh Bardugo Incorporated. Alright, cool. So what I'm going... Oh, the Grisha. Soldiers of the Second Army, Masters of the Small Science. Ooh. Kaporlikai. The Order of the Living and the Dead. Heartrenders, Healers. Ethrokai. The Order of Summoners, Squallers, and Ferny Tidemakers. Ooh. Bitterlikai. The Order of Fabricators. Duress, Alchemy. So... the magic system in this is going to be pretty intricate. Here we go. Oh, look at this. Part 1. It's got this cool black Part 1 thing with like stars and stuff. That's cool. Aesthetically, this is a nice book. And then Chapter 1 has this really cool little... Let's see if I can get that up there like that. It's a little graphic up there. It says Juiced. So... I am going to be reading the first chapter of this book and then giving my impressions. I will put in the box below if you want to skip me reading the first chapter, you can, and then just go right to my first impressions. But if you want to listen to me read the first chapter, sure, let's do it. I'm actually going to be reading off the Goodreads website where they give you a preview of the book. Just so that I can look at the camera a little bit more. Okay, Chapter 1, Juiced. Juiced had 2 problems. The moon and his mustache. Okay. He was supposed to be making his rounds at the Hode House, but for the last 15 minutes he'd been hovering around the southeast wall of the gardens, trying to think of something clever and romantic to say to Anya. If only Anya's eyes were blue like the sea or green like an emerald. Instead, her eyes were brown, lovely, dreamy, melted chocolate brown? Rabbit fur brown? I don't think that's going to work there, Juiced. Tell her she's got skin like moonlight, his friend Pieter had said. Girls love that. Okay. A perfect solution, but the Ketterdam weather was not cooperating. There'd been no breeze off the harbor that day, and a gray milk fog had weathered the city's canals and crooked alleys and damp. Even here, among the mansions of the Gildstraat, the air hung thick with the smell of fish and bilge water, and smoke from the refineries on the city's outer islands had smeared the night sky in a briny haze. The full moon looked less like a jewel than a yellowy blister in need of glancing. That is so awkward. Maybe he could compliment Anya's laugh. Except he never heard her laugh. He wasn't very good with jokes. Juice glanced at his reflection in one of the glass panels, set into the double doors that led from the house to the side garden. His mother was right. Even in his new uniform, he still looked like a baby. Gently, he brushed his fingers along his upper lip. If only his mustache would come in. It definitely felt thicker than yesterday. Okay. He'd been a guard in the Stadwatch less than 3 weeks, and it wasn't nearly as exciting as he hoped. He thought he'd be running down thieves in the barrel or patrolling the harbors, getting first look at cargo coming in on the docks. But ever since the assassination of the ambassador at the town hall, the merchant council had been grumbling about security. So where was he? Stuck walking in circles at some lucky mercher's house. Not just any mercher, though. Councilman Hode was about as high-placed in Ketterdam government as a man could see. The kind of man he could make a career. Juice adjusted the setup of his coat and rifle, then patted the weighted baton at his hip. Maybe Hode would take a liking to him. Sharp-eyed and quick with a cudgel, Hode would say. That fellow deserves a promotion. Sergeant Juice Van Powell, he said, whispering the sound of the words Captain Juice Van Powell. Stop gawking at yourself. Juice whirled, cheeks going hot as Hank and Rutger strode into the side garden. They were both older, bigger, and broader of shoulder than Juice. And they were house guards, private servants of Councilman Hode. Obviously, these guys are not the thieves that the book was talking about on the front. These are guys just setting up the world, I guess. They are policemen, basically. Guards. Okay. They were house guards, private servants of Councilman Hode. That meant they wore his pale green livery, carried fancy rifles from Novi Zem, and never let Juice forget he was lowly grunt from the City Watch. Putting that bit of fuzz isn't going to make it grow any faster, Rutger said with a loud laugh. Juice tried to summon some dignity. I need to finish my rounds. Rutger elbowed Hank. That means he's going to go stick his head in the Grisha workshop to look for that girl. Oh, Anya, won't you use your Grisha magic to make my mustache grow? Hank mocked. Juice turned on his heels, cheeks burning, and strode down the eastern side of the house. They'd been teasing him ever since he'd arrived. If it hadn't been for Anya, he would have pleaded. Some of these sentences are a little bit awkward. If it hadn't been for Anya, he probably would have pleaded with his captain for a reassignment. He and Anya only ever exchanged a few words on his rounds, but she was always the best part of this night. But he had to admit he liked Hode's house too, the few peeks he'd managed through the windows. Hode had one of the grandest mansions on the Gildstrat floors, set with gleaming squares of black and white stone, shining dark wood walls lit by blown glass chandeliers that floated like jellyfish near the coffered ceilings. Okay. Sometimes Juice liked to pretend that it was his house, that he was a rich merchant just out for a stroll through his fine garden. Before he rounded the corner, Juice took a deep breath. Anya, your eyes are brown like tree bark? He'd think of something. He was better off being spontaneous anyway. He was surprised to see the glass-paneled doors to the Grisha workshop open. More than the hand-painted blue tiles in the kitchen or the mantels laden with potted tulips, this workshop was a testimony of Hode's wealth. Grisha indentures didn't come cheap, and Hode had 3 of them. But Yuri wasn't seated at the long work table, and Anya was nowhere to be seen. Only Redvinko was there, sprawled out on a chair in a dark blue robes, eyes shut, a book open on his chest. Juice hovered in the doorway, then cleared his throat. These doors should be shut and locked at night. House is like a furnace, Redvinko drawled without opening his eyes, his Rivkin accent thick and rolling. Tell Hode I stopped sweating. I closed doors. Tell Hode I stopped sweating. I closed doors. Okay, so this guy must be a foreigner. Okay, yeah. Redvinko was a squalor, older than the other Grisha indentures. His hair shot through with silver. There were rumors he'd fought for the losing side in Ravka's civil war and had fled to Kerch after the fighting. I'd be happy to present your compliments to Councilman Hode, Juice lied. The house was always overheated, as if Hode were under obligation to burn coal, but Juice wasn't going to be the one to mention it. Until then, you bring news of Yuri, Redvenko interrupted, finally opening his heavily hooded eyes. Juice glanced uneasily at the barrels of red grapes and heaps of burgundy velvet on the work table. Yuri had been working on bleeding color from the fruit into curtains for Mistress Hode, but he'd fallen badly ill a few days ago, and Juice hadn't seen him since. Dust had begun to gather on the velvet, and the grapes were going bad. I haven't heard anything. Of course you hear nothing. Too busy strutting around in stupid purple uniform. What was wrong with his uniform, and why did Redvenko even have to be here? He was Hode's personal squalor and often traveled with the merchant's most precious cargoes, guaranteeing favorable winds to bring the ships safely and quickly to harbor. Why couldn't he be away at sea now? I think Yuri may be quarantined. So helpful, Redvenko said with a sneer. You can stop craning neck like hopeful goose, he added. Anya is gone. Juice felt his face heat again. Where is she? He asked, trying to sound authoritative. She should be in after dark. 1 hour ago, Hode takes her. Same as night he came for Yuri. I'm going to have a hard time reading Redvenko's dialogue if he's in this book a lot. What do you mean he came for Yuri? Yuri felt ill. Hode comes for Yuri. Yuri comes back sick. 2 days later, Yuri vanishes for good. Now Anya. For good? Maybe there was an emergency if someone needed to be healed. First Yuri, now Anya. It'll be next, and now no one will notice except poor little Officer Juice. Go now. If Councilman Hode, Redvenko raised an arm, and in a gust of air slammed Juice backward. Juice scrambled to keep his footing, grabbing for the door frame. So it sounds like that there's these girls are missing. These Grishas are missing. Yuri and Anya. Okay. I said now, Redvenko edged a circle in the air and the door slammed shut. Juice let go just in time to avoid having fingers smashed and toppled into the side garden. He got to his feet as quickly as he could, wiping muck from his uniform, shame squirming in his belly. How shame squirm? There are some odd adverbs in this so far. Okay. One of the glass panes in the door had never mind. I guess that's a verb. I'm dumb. Never mind. One of the glass panes in the door had cracked from the force. Through it, he saw the squalor smirking. That's counting against your indenture, Juice said, pointing to the ruined pane. He hated how small and petty his voice sounded. Redvenko waved his hand, and the doors trembled on their hinges. Without meaning to, Juice took a step back. Go make your rounds, little watchdog, Redvenko called. That went well, snickered Rutgar, leaning against the garden wall. How long had he been standing there? Don't you have something better to do than follow me around, Juice asked. All guards are to report to the boathouse, even you. Or are you too busy making friends? I was asking him to shut the door. Rutgar shook his head. You don't ask, you tell. They're servants, not honored guests. Juice fell into step beside him. Insides were still churning with humiliation. The worst part was that Rutger was right. Redvenko had no business talking to him that way. But what was Juice supposed to do? Even if he'd had the courage to get into a fight with a squalor, it would be like brawling with an expensive vase. Even... I don't... Like, the comparisons... The comparisons are throwing me a little bit. The Grisha weren't just servants, they were Hode's treasured possessions. Oh, okay. What had Redvenko meant about Yuri and Anya being taken anyway? Had he been covering for Anya? Grisha indentures were kept to the house for good reason. To walk the streets without protection was to risk getting plucked up by a slaver and never seen again. Maybe she's meeting someone, Juice speculated miserably. His thoughts were interrupted by the blaze of light and activity down by the boathouse that faced the canal. Across the water, you could see other fine merchant houses, tall and slender, and the tidy gables of the rooftops making a dark silhouette against the night sky. Their gardens and boathouses lit by glowing lanterns. A few weeks before, Juice had been told that Hode's boathouse would be undergoing improvements and to strike it from his rounds. But when he and Rutger entered, he saw no paint or scaffolding. The gondolas and oars had been pushed up against the wall. Other house guards were there in their sea green livery, and Juice recognized two Statach guards in purple. But most of the interior was taken up by a huge box, a kind of free-standing cell that looked like it was made from reinforced steel. It seemed sticking with rivets, a huge window embedded in one of the walls. The glass had a wavy bent, and through it, Juice could see a girl seated at a table, clutching her red silk tied around her. Behind her, a Stadwatch guard stood at attention. Anya, Juice realized with a start. Her brown eyes were wide and frightened, her pale skin. Okay. Juice realized with a start. Her brown eyes were wide and frightened, her pale skin. What? Her skin pale. Maybe it's just me. I'm having a hard time talking out loud. Her brown eyes were wide and frightened, her skin pale. Okay. Thank you for telling us again that her skin was pale. The little boy sitting across from her looked doubly terrified. His hair was sleep mossed, and his legs dangled from the chair, kicking nervously at the air. Why all the guards? Asked Juice. There had to be more than 10 of them crowded into the boathouse. Constable Hood was there too, along with the merchant Joe didn't know, both of them dressed in murder black. Joe stood up straighter when he saw they were talking to the captain of the stat watch. He'd hoped he'd gotten all the garden mud off his uniform. What is this? Rutger shrugged. Who cares? It's a break in the routine. Just looked back through the glass. Anya was staring out at him, her gaze unfocused. The day he'd arrived at Hood House, she'd healed a bruise on his cheek. It had been nothing, the yellow-green remnants of a crack he'd taken into the face during a training exercise. But apparently Hood had caught sight of it and didn't like his scars looking like thugs. Jost had been sent to the Grisha workshop, and Anya had sat him down in a bright square of late winter sunlight. Her cool fingers had pressed over his skin, and though the itch had been terrible, bare seconds later, it was as if bruised had never been. What is bare seconds? Like a few? Bare? Oh yeah, like barely. Bare is like barely. I don't know. I don't know if bare is a word. It must be because it's in the book. Bare seconds. Okay. When Juice thanked her, Anya smiled, and Juice was lost. He knew his cause was hopeless. Even if she'd had any interest in him, he could never afford to buy her indenture from Hode, and she would never marry unless Hode decreed it. But it hadn't stopped him from dropping by to say hello or to bring her little gifts. She'd liked the map of Kerch best, a whimsical drawing of their island nation surrounded by mermaids swimming in the shrew sea and ships blown along by winds depicted as fat-cheeked men. It was a cheap souvenir, the kind tourists bought along East Staff, but it seemed to please her. Now he risked raising a hand and greeting. Anya showed no reaction. She can't see you, moron, laughed Rutger. The glass is mirrored on the other side. Juice's cheeks pinked. How was I to know that? Open your eyes and pay attention for once. First Yuri, now Anya. Why do they need a Grisha healer? Is that boy injured? He looks fine to me. The captain of Hode seemed to reach some kind of agreement. Through the glass, Juice saw Hode enter the cell and give the boy an encouraging pat. There must have been vents in the cell because he heard Hode say, "Be a brave lad, and there's a few crudge in it for you." Then he grabbed Anya's chin with a liver-spotted hand. She tensed and Juice's gut tightened. Hode gave Anya's head a little shake. Do as you're told, and this will soon be over. Ja? She gave a small, tight smile. Of course, uncle, with an O. It's like uncle with an O. Hode whispered a few words to the guard behind Anya, then stepped out. The door shut with a loud clang, and Hode slid a heavy lock into place. Hode and the other merchant took positions almost directly in front of Juice and Rutger. The merchant Juice didn't know said, "You're sure this is wise? This girl is a corporalnik. After what happened to your fabricator, if it was Ravenko, I'd be worried, but Anya has a sweet disposition. She's a healer, not prone to aggression." "And you've lowered the dose?" "Yes, but we're agreed that if we have the same results as the fabricator, the council will compensate me. I can't be asked to bear the expense." When the merchant nodded, Hode signaled to the captain, "Proceed. The same results as the fabricator." Ravenko claimed Yuri had vanished. Was that what he meant? "Sergeant," said the captain, "are you ready?" The guard inside the cell replied, "Yes, sir." He drew a knife. Juice swallowed hard. "Final test," said the captain. The guard bent forward and told the boy to roll up his sleeve. The boy obeyed and stuck out his arm, popping the thumb of his other hand into his mouth. Too old for that, thought Juice. Wow. I don't even know why. Why did they have to point that out, that he was too old? It's obvious that they're too old to do that. But the boy must be very scared. Just had slept with a sock bear until he was nearly 14, a fact his older brothers had mocked mercilessly. This will sting just a bit, said the guard. The boy kept his thumb in his mouth and nodded, eyes round. This really isn't necessary, said Anya. Quiet, please, said Hode. The guard gave the boy a pat and slashed a bright red cut across his forearm. The boy started crying immediately. Anya tried to rise from her chair, but the guard placed a stern hand on her shoulder. It's all right, Sergeant, said Hode. Let her heal him. Anya leaned forward, taking the boy's hand gently. Shh, she said softly. Let me help. Will it hurt? The boy gulped. She smiled. Not at all, just a little itch. Try to hold still for me. Juice found himself leaning closer. He never actually seen Anya heal somebody. But he was healed by her. But I guess he couldn't see himself being healed. Okay. Anya removed a handkerchief from her sleeve and wiped away the excess blood. Then her fingers brushed carefully over the boy's wound. Juice watched in astonishment as the skin slowly seemed to reform and knit together. A few minutes later, the boy grinned and held out his arm. It looked a bit red, but was otherwise smooth and unmarked. Was that magic? Anya tapped him on the nose. Of a sort, the same magic your own body works when given time and a bit of bandage. The boy looked almost disappointed. Good, good, Hode said impatiently. Now the param. Juice frowned. He never heard that word. The captain signaled to his sergeant. Second sequence. Put out your arm, the sergeant said to the boy once again. The boy shook his head. I don't like that part. Do it. The boy's lower lip quivered, but he put out his arm. The guard cut him once more. Then he placed a small wax paper envelope on the table in front of Anya. Swallow the contents of the packet, Hode instructed Anya. What is it? She asked, voice trembling. That isn't your concern. What is it? She repeated. It's not going to kill you. We're going to ask you to perform simple tasks to judge the drug's effects. The sergeant is more there to make sure you do only what you're told and no more. Understood? Her jaw set, but she nodded. Wow. There is a lot of commas in these sentences that seems very awkward, like fragments put together with commas. Okay. No one will harm you, said Hode. But remember, if you hurt the sergeant, you have no way out of that cell. The doors are locked from the outside. What is that stuff? Whispered Juice. Don't know, said Rutger. What do you know? He muttered. Enough to keep my trap shut. Juice scowled. With shaking hands, Anya lifted the little wax envelope and opened the flap. Go on, said Hode. She tipped her head back and swallowed the powder. For a moment she sat waiting, lips pressed together. Is it just Gerda? She asked hopelessly. Juice found himself hoping too. Yeah. Gerda was nothing to fear, a stimulant everyone in the Starred Watch chewed to stay awake on late watches. What does it taste like? Hode asked. Like Gerda, but sweeter. Anya inhaled sharply. Her hand seized the table, her pupils dilating enough that her eyes looked nearly black. Oh, she said, sighing. It was nearly a purr. It was nearly a purr? Oh, okay, so it was like a good purr. Okay. The guard tightened his grip on her shoulder. How do you feel? She stared at the mirror and smiled. Her tongue peeked through her white teeth, stained like rust. Her tongue peeked through her white teeth, stained like rust. Okay, so her Juice felt suddenly cold. See, like, that sentence there, like, her tongue peeked through her white teeth, stained like rust. I wish it would say, her tongue, stained like rust, peeked through her white teeth. I don't understand why it doesn't say that, and it says this. It's very awkward. Alright. Just as it was with the fabricator, murmured the merchant. Heal the boy, Hoed commanded. She waved her hand through the air, the gesture almost dismissive, and the cut on the boy's arm sealed instantly. The blood lifted briefly from his skin in droplets of red, then vanished. His skin looked perfectly smooth, all traces of blood or redness gone. The boy beamed. That was definitely magic. It feels like magic, Anna said, with that same eerie smile. She didn't touch him, marveled the captain. Anya, said Hode. Listen closely. We're going to tell the guard to perform the next test now. Hummed Anya. What? Seriously, this one line says, hummed Anya. It's one line. Okay, sorry. The sergeant, said Hode, cut off the boy's thumb. What? That's too much now. The boy howled and started to cry again. He shoved his hands beneath his legs to protest them. I should stop this, Juice thought. I should find a way to protect her, both of them. But what then? If he was a nobody, new to the Stadwatch, new to this house. Besides, he discovered in a burst of shame, I want to keep my job. Anya merely smiled and tilted her head back so she was looking at the sergeant. Shoot the glass. She told the sergeant to shoot the glass. What did she say? Asked the merchant. Sergeant, the captain barked out. Shoot the glass, Anya repeated. The sergeant's face went slack. He cocked his head to one side as if listening to a distant melody, then unslung his rifle and aimed at the observation window. Get down! Someone yelled. Juice threw himself to the ground, covering his head as the rapid hammer of gunfire filled his ears and bits of glass rained down on his hands and back. His thoughts were a panicked clamor, his mind trying to deny it, but he knew what he'd just seen. Anya had commanded the sergeant to shoot the glass. She'd made him do it, but that couldn't be. Grisha Propolici specialized in the human body. They could stop your heart, slow your breathing, snap your bones. They couldn't get inside your head. For a moment there was silence. Then Juice was on his feet with everyone else, reaching for his rifle. Hode and the captain shouted at the same time, Subdue her! Shoot her! Do you know how much money she's worth? Hode retorted. Someone restrain her. Do not shoot. Anya raised her hands, red sleeves spread wide. Wait, she said. Juice's panic vanished. He knew he'd been frightened, but this fear was a distant thing. He was filled with expectation. He wasn't sure what was coming or when, only that it would arrive and that it was essential he'd be ready to meet it. It might be bad or good. He didn't really care. His heart was free of worry and desire. He longed for nothing, wanted for nothing, his mind silent, his breath steady. He only needed to wait. He saw Anya rise and pick up the little boy. He heard her crooning tenderly to him some Ravkin lullaby. Open the door and come in, Hode, she said. Juice heard the words, understood them, forgot them. Hode walked to the door and slid the bolt free. He entered the steel cell. Do as you're told, and this will soon be over. Ja? Okay. Anya murmured with a smile. Her eyes were black and bottomless pools. Her skin was a light, glowing, incandescent. A thought flickered through a juiced mind, beautiful as the moon. He finally got it. Anya shifted the boy's weight in her arms. Don't look, she murmured against his hair. Now, she said to Hode, pick up the knife. Okay, that is the first chapter of Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Initial reaction. The writing is really clunky. A lot of the things that she uses commas for to add more to the sentence could have been reworded and it wouldn't sound as clunky. Hopefully I either get used to it or hopefully it's just something with me reading it out loud and that's why it sounds that way, but it's and the comparisons was odd. Like the comparisons was just odd. Like they compared a light to a jellyfish, and then earlier than that there was a comparison that I was like, what? Like, the comparisons didn't really make sense, but whatever. Um, the magic is kind of cool. That's what I'm most interested in at the moment. I'm thinking that was just like a setup, like prologue type chapter. It wasn't necessarily people that had a lot of part in the actual story. It just wanted to show you what these people that could use this magic could do. Her taking that drug and how it affected her and how she could control people. I think that was the main point of that entire chapter. But right off the gate, we have some boy pining after some girl right out the front gate. So, I don't know. Okay, initial reactions aren't so great, but you never know. It'll probably get better. A lot of people seem to like it. So, yeah, that was the first chapter of Six of Crows. So far, my favorite part of the book is the physical book. It's pretty cool. Hopefully, it gets better. Hopefully, maybe it's just me tonight reading out loud, and that's why it sounded very awkward at times. So hopefully, as I read it just normal, that I can get into it, and we get introduced to a lot of the regular heisty characters. So yeah, hopefully it'll be good, and I'll probably read it. Let's see, how many pages is there? This is a relatively easy book to read, even though I felt like I was struggling to read it on camera. About 500 pages. Probably have a review of this up, probably by the end of the week. It is due at the library on Friday, so I need to get to it, or I have to renew it. So yeah, definitely. I will have a review up in probably Friday. So thanks for watching. If you watched it live, I appreciate it. But yeah, check out the book. I'll have the book linked to Goodreads below, and watch for my review coming up at the end of the week. Okay? All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.